in let me get this
I'm in a
right.
place called Tarmore, which is about an hour and a half southwest of Sydney.
Okay, south.
And I'm
Oh,
45 minutes from Wollongong. So I'm 45 minutes from the coast.
those names over there kill me. We have a lot of Indian. We have a lot of American Indian names over here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming on.
Yeah.
Let me
Okay.
just make sure everything is good to go.
Yeah.
Turn the volume off. So the comments from the different platforms will appear on the right.
Okay.
And you don't have to look at them, but I'm just letting you know. That's what all that
Okay.
stuff is.
It
Okay, so
does
here
say
we.
that. I haven't
Oh, it
got my
does. Okay.
glasses on, so I won't be able to read them.
No problem. I know how that goes. Okay, so we got 24 people. Well, we still need another minute.
Oh,
We need another minute. Let's see, my dear brother Bruce is in the house. Okay, so we're okay there. Yeah, so we just had another sit down with Gail Barnett a few days ago, which
did
was real.
you?
Yeah, which was really good because yeah, I mean, I met her last. I met her in God. It's been a while, hasn't it? I met
Yeah, it
her
was
in
last year.
September of 2020. I met her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we were in Sedona, and she had scheduled a session with Morgan. And so I just happened to walk in and they were both just crying,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then I saw her face. I thought, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
So there's these soul recognitions that take place. Let me turn this. Oh, no, what am
Yeah.
I must have
Gail's
been like,
just popped on.
yeah, yeah, I must
God
have been
love.
blowing your eardrums out. I had the gain all the way up.
No.
I was practicing my soul speaking last night to some music. So you're an hour and a half southwest of
Of
Sydney. So that's
Sydney.
going towards what's next? Melbourne? Is it?
Victoria. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not anywhere near there. I'm like 9 hours drive
Yeah,
from there.
yeah, everything over there is hours.
Yeah,
Like several hours away, right?
it
Yeah,
is.
so yeah, these things are always everything's always connected,
Yeah.
obviously. And yeah, I just received a note from a friend of mine, and that same thing happened. I was like, oh my God, things are lining up. You can't make this stuff up.
No.
So you are a friend of Gail Barnett's. We're not going to hold that against you, but
No. But
we're just
Gail and I met in India on a retreat at the end of 2016. And it was one of those connections. So Gail lives on the other side of the country from me. So it's a
right.
long, long way away from me. And we've managed to maintain a very close sister relationship since we met in India in 2016.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's
2016,
amazing.
in the middle of all this, halftime. That
Yeah.
was halftime if you take 2012 as a start date. And I know some people started before that and some after, but
Yeah.
yeah, 2016 was, in fact, who was it? There was this video going around about a week ago,
Yeah.
and several people had cited it. A friend of ours sent it to us, and the lady had some pretty good intel. And
Yeah.
she was saying, and this is falling in line with other people's intel as well, but that in 2016, there was, I don't know what wave number it was. She says a sixth wave hit the 21st of this month. The seventh wave will hit by the end of the year, and 40% of the planet will be awake. 40% of those that are still incarnated. But she said, and I've heard other people's talk about this, that in 2016, of course, everything that happens, we all have a hand in, or we all have a say in, and that in 2016, everybody was given the choice to either, well, we had to use these human terms, but go to 5D or stay in a 3D kind of a realm. And now
Wow.
that's starting to materialize, as we can all tell. Everything is kind of becoming a great divide. So you guys met in India. Were y'all at an ashram or what was it?
No, we're at a retreat with a lady here who runs soul retreats called Alana Fairchild.
Okay.
And it was a Lakshmi meditation retreat.
Okay.
But it was really interesting because all of us women that were there really connected quite profoundly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that
it
wasn't.
became, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it was like for me, 2016 was a massive year. It's the year that I ended up leaving my teaching career
Mm,
after a really rough year and 25, 26 years in that profession, and ended up leaving at the end of that year. And my life has changed significantly since then. But I did not know about the 2016 impact, but it makes sense in my life.
yeah. Yeah, it seemed like things really picked up after that. So that, I mean, not that things weren't moving along before that, but so what made
Yeah.
you quit? Was it just a higher level of guidance or did something
I
else?
think, yeah, ultimately it was. It was a series of a lot of years of whispers and me not listening to the whispers that it was time to make a change in my life.
Mm,
And in 2016, I found myself under investigation by the Department of Education here for allegedly failing to report the misconduct of other staff members. The irony
really?
being that they wouldn't have known that if I had not reported it. They just weren't happy that I didn't report it straight away.
That's kind of ironic because if you look at most of the establishment, be
Mm.
it police, any of the institutions, I don't want to just pick on police, but
Yeah.
there's a tendency to cover all that stuff up. So they actually came after you for not being a whistleblower, which
That's
is
exactly right. But only as part of a bigger thing. It was against the leader of the school, and
mm,
yeah, so it like there were lots of little bits and pieces that were weaving in and out of that. But ultimately, I think for me, it was a sign that it was time to move on and try different things, and my consciousness exploded beyond as a result of me leaving. But it was scary to just jump because I then had to start a business to maintain an income of sorts.
mm.
And
Yeah.
when
So
you become institutionalized, you don't think that you're I don't know, you don't think that you're capable of doing much else outside of the institution.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's by design. And then you have
Yeah,
the great conundrum of, how do I make this leap?
yeah,
Because in the 3D, you get a weekly paycheck and you have a
yes,
you have a savings account. And then in the
yeah,
5D, you just have to wake up every morning knowing that you're going to have what you need and you don't get a savings account. You just have what you need.
that's right. And you
But
just trust.
well, that's good that you listened to that sign because I have a feeling like many of us, you would have gotten a universal 2x4 up the side of the head in order for you to finally get it.
Well, that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
That was it. And so at the end of 2016, so at the end of that horrific year, I met Gail and went on the retreat to India, which was something that I wouldn't usually do. But I had booked that in January. I just felt called. So I
Mm.
think it was trusting that calling and then letting it evolve naturally
Mm.
that allowed me to sort of step up at the end of the year and say, okay, I'm taking next year of leave. And I traveled a lot and just expanded
Yeah.
myself and my understanding of the way the world works, and was introduced to 3D and 5D.
So did you have some level of you know uh, some level of weirdness before 2016? Were you born this way or did you have a wake up experience or was that your wake up experience?
I was born this way. I've always been a bit different, a bit weird, a bit not normal. When I was younger, like a little girl, I ended up having lots of prophetic dreams and would talk to my mum about them. And then we'd hear something internationally that was exactly the same description as what I described my dreams were. So, but as we grow up, we lose. Well, do we lose that ability, or do we choose not to be open to it? I chose not to be open to it for a lot of years, and then it just started coming back,
Yeah.
or I
Well,
became more aware of it, allowed it in, whatever the right words are.
yeah. Well, I mean, most of the people that have come on this show in 3,000 episodes, they have a very similar story, and I think it's not about, we say we shut it off, and I think in some cases people did, but I think the impetus for that was nobody listened to us.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
too weird and too far out there, and we were deemed crazy, and we were
yeah,
already feeling like we're on the outside standing. I mean, on the
yeah.
outside of the circle anyway. But
That's
so I
true.
mean, a lot of people talk about how they're once they start to kind of dive into that. That current of the 5D or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
where you can't hang on to the edges and everything, that they're estranged in the process from their family, from their old friends, and they're basically
mm,
removed from all these different arenas of their life where they no longer fit in. Did you go through that?
Absolutely. I'm still going through that. The last
Mm,
couple of years, I've had one thing after another hit me, and I've lost so many people out of my life.
wow.
I've lost both parents in the last couple of years. They passed,
Mm,
and then a lot of friends as a result of different things that I've been exploring and doing. You know, the energy just doesn't resonate anymore. There's no nastiness. It's just the energy
yeah.
doesn't resonate. You need to move through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind
I
of got to
also
leave it.
came from a very traumatic childhood, very dysfunctional, traumatic childhood, and so had all of the trappings that brought with it, like needing to people please, wanting to fit in
Yeah.
and belong,
Yeah.
not be different, all that sort of stuff. So, it's been a gradual unfolding and letting go of all of those entrapments.
Yeah. And did you have any emissaries of the universe holding your hand as you walked through this door of the big abyss?
We
Like a lot of
always
people.
do, surely.
Who were your escorts?
I've got a strong guide family
Mm,
who take me through. Um, and I encountered Green Tara when I went to the far north of India after the retreat, and met Green Tara there. So she's been significant since the end of 2016. But my guides are phenomenal. I've got a very strong and active guide family who,
mm.
funnily enough, I'm now letting go of and
No,
trusting source completely without that. So it's
I,
been an interesting evolution.
yeah, I think that's how it's working here, isn't it? I mean,
Mm,
it's like they or those energies or those aspects were just there to get us to a certain point until we could take off the training wheels and start
yeah,
driving the vehicle on our own.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's now what I've not heard. I don't think I've ever heard Tara. Now Tara, is that Gaia, and Green Tara? What is that? Is there
No,
a
Green
difference?
Tara is one of the, I can't say this word, so I hope I don't offend anyone, but
Okay,
Bodhivast, that word.
I
She's
know
one
what
of
it
the,
looks like.
yeah,
I can't
she's
say it
got,
either.
no, it's horrible. She's active compassion. So she's got
Mm,
one leg ready to run and the other folded underneath her, and she's ready to move forward.
mm,
And that sort of epitomized the last 5 years of my journey,
okay.
is
Oh,
that
I see.
active compassion for other people and action, but also for myself.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out the symbology of one leg's ready to run and the other one's firmly planted.
Well, ready to run to get up and act.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
It's
messing
an
with you.
interesting spot.
Uh, so okay, what was I going to ask you? Uh, oh, I know what it was. So we hear a lot of people refer to their team, and a lot of people
Yeah.
will say they. They were telling me last night. They were telling me this, and then I know it doesn't matter, but it's just a curious mind that I have. Do you know? Do you have a feel for your team? Is it a galactic feel? Do you feel like it's star family? Is it elemental? Is it angelic?
It's all of it. So
Yeah.
I've got elements. I've got a couple of guides from the stars. I've
Mm.
got a couple from past lives. My main guide in the normal run of guides was from Mesopotamia, and eventually I found out, it was revealed to me through meditation, that it was actually me in a past life. So it's me guiding myself,
Yeah.
which was an interesting thing. But I've got animals. I've got owls. I've got wolves.
Yeah.
I've got an Amazonian rainforest man.
Wow. That's quite a
It's
group
it's
there.
I've got a massive group, and some of them, I've got a few that are staple, and some come in at different
Hmm.
times when it's
I have,
necessary.
yeah, I have a feeling. I remember when I woke up 10, 11 years ago that I kept hearing, "You've got God's greatest army behind you," and I'd look back and I'd see this huge triangle of entities. But I have a feeling that we all have huge support right next to us, and
Absolutely.
do you feel like that as the communication, so to speak, the way it's been is fading away, do you feel their presence more? Do you feel like they're always there, or do you feel like that they're leaving you alone?
I know that they're there, but they're not as physically present as they
Mm,
used to be, because what they've instructed me is that it's time for me to stand on my own 2 feet and trust that I can.
mm, yeah.
And that's what I've started to do. So they've enabled me. I think, like you said before, the training wheels analogy is a good one. They've come in as training wheels to allow me to transition from where I was to where I'm heading and to where I am. And they're enabling that transition by supporting me, even though sometimes people look at me like I'm a little bit crazy.
Well,
But
welcome
I'm
to
at
the.
peace with that.
Well, you're with all your family here now, so
Yeah.
we're all viewed the same way. Yeah. So like this this whole journey, is just peppered with so many like just cycles of expansion. And then we find ourselves over the last 2 years dealing with this uh, the blessing of this program, which the energies behind
Mm,
it have just basically kind of propelled us all into make a decision, stand on your
yeah.
ground, stand in your power. Have you? How's it been for you the last couple of years? Are you finding that you're coming into your own? Are
Yeah.
you having less doubt? Are you more, like more assured in what you're here to do, even though they never give us
Yeah.
any clues as to what we're supposed to do, like say a week from now? It's
Yeah.
always like one day in advance. But how do you feel about all that?
I definitely am aware of my soul purpose,
Mm,
absolutely, and have started embodying that and bringing it into the real world. So I run a not-for-profit out here called the Blue Butterfly Institute that empowers and
mm,
supports sexual trauma survivors and victims and their families, and
wow.
tries to raise awareness of the impact of trauma brain on survivors. And so that's my soul purpose.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and have found the most amazing group of people here to work with me. And so we started that last year at the beginning of the year, and it's been an amazing journey. So definitely become aware of that as my sole purpose and knowing that, but also becoming more conscious of so I do a lot of volunteer work as well, and becoming conscious of how those old systems and old structures of being and ways of doing no longer serve. And so trying to balance the no longer serving with the reality that we live in
Mhm.
is exceptionally difficult.
Okay, so this is where we've come together today because this is
Yeah.
very much where I'm at.
Ah,
If you go back to when you started this last leg of it with your work, one of the things that people are contending with is in the old, let's just say the old template that we're coming out of. You had to
mm,
plan things and you had to organize things and you had to
mm,
set things up and I guess
mm.
for lack of a better word, control things as best you could.
Yeah,
This seems to be a field of potential and creativity where we basically take these steps forward, even if they don't make sense, and then what
yeah.
you need comes to you. Are you finding this in your collaboration with your friends as you're doing this?
Absolutely. Like I used to, as a high school teacher, which I've since just gone back into, but everything has to be organized. Everything runs on a schedule and a program and all the rest of it. And so when I first left teaching and moved into my business, I struggled to let go of those need to be regimented, need to have control, need to always be organized and prepared. And I run a healing business. And in there, I run workshops to collaborate with other people. And we've now got to the point when I collaborate with people and got there quite early on that we'd have this massive plan for the workshop and the day. And we'd get there and we'd go, should we just follow our intuition on this and see what comes? And so that's what we now do. We've got an idea, a plan of where we're going. And then we just let the day's energies and the people that come to us lead us where we meant to go. And we hold space for that. We've become more facilitators than
Mm.
organizers and of
Yeah,
facilitators in space.
there's something about the moment and the spontaneous and the
Yeah.
unplanned. I mean, we had our first Soulogy Fest last year,
Yeah.
and I put together a schedule on our internal website with the team where the team would refer to. Somebody prints it out because there
Yeah.
was a schedule on there, and I basically put the schedule together just to kind of make like a skeleton template,
Yeah.
but it was designed, or I knew in my head it was going to be very fluid and
Yeah.
interchangeable, and we're just going to make it up as we go, basically.
Yeah.
And so it was really funny because as we got into this into this festival, within just a few hours, people were saying, "Who's going to show up when? Can we have a schedule?" I'm like, "No, no, no, no. It doesn't work that way." But it worked out beautifully. I mean, everything was there. So what I'm saying is that there seems to be some type of third energy element that
Yeah,
actually collaborates with you if you let go. And I
yeah,
feel like you let go, and then everything comes, right?
that's
Is that?
exactly right. We create the space
Yeah, yeah,
to just be and to let everybody come in and participate. And I think it makes it significantly more beneficial for everyone, because I think everyone's needs are then met,
yeah.
whatever those needs are, not necessarily always positive.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it
Oh, I
allows
didn't.
everybody to grow. It's opportunities.
Oh, I thought everything was positive from here out. Yeah, I thought everybody was just going to be happy and in bliss. No, I'm
Wouldn't that
just.
be a dream and a nice way of being? I don't know.
Well,
Maybe it is. Don't know.
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you. I'm just
I know
being.
you are, but there
It's
are people who believe that, and I sometimes wish I could.
well,
But the universe is in balance. Yeah,
I respect everybody's reality. Well, and
yeah,
on that note, I mean, you're diving into, or at least a piece of what you're diving into with your work and your purpose is sexual trauma, particularly for
yeah.
women. And this is a story, and obviously as time goes on, we realize it's more and more men have been involved as
Absolutely.
well. They just haven't admitted it.
Yeah,
But my point is that it obviously the sexual energy center, or we could say the lower chakras,
yeah,
obviously have been absolutely turned upside down. I mean, we're working our way out of it. Sexual trauma, sexual distortion, et cetera, has obviously been kind of an obstacle for each one of us. This is very touchy. People don't want to talk about it,
mm,
which just continues to conceal it. But it's coming out. But my question is along the lines of, it looks like that as the days go by, just as within your life in the last few months or year or so, you're having to step across or step out of what you know into what you don't know and trust. And I guess where my question is, you know, what's it going to take? Is it going to happen? How do we take the hooks of the matrix, particularly in this area, this subject area of the sexual power?
yeah.
How do we totally disengage from the hold that it has on us? Do you have any? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just exploring here.
I think we sow seeds. I think as more victims become survivors and then share their stories, as we become more aware and safer to share stories, I think we move forward as a community with a higher social consciousness, and we allow people to be who they are, and we create the safe space for people to heal and
Mm,
to realize that, and this can be quite controversial, um, that any sort of trauma we go through is ultimately an opportunity to learn, to grow, to heal, to
yeah.
become more aware, to become more empathetic, um, to be more than what we were. We learn how to remove the shackles. The trauma exists because of the matrix and the systems that we operate under, to keep people small and keep their mouths closed and become easy to condition into ways of being that don't necessarily fit. And I think that as more people become empowered in owning their own stories and feeling safe in their stories, we break that apart. I think in this generation, in our timeline currently, we're all sowing seeds.
Yeah, yeah, and they're starting to sprout.
Yeah, absolutely. And starting to, those noxious weeds that actually spread their seed and people don't want them to be there. I think that's what trauma
Yeah,
survivors have become, that noxious weed to
yeah,
government and to the powers and all the rest of it.
yeah. It's like characteristic of any soul that's pushing the envelope, and I
Yeah,
just kind of picture it like the seeds are sprouting, and it's sprouting into a sky of like dark and gray being presented. That's the veil,
yeah,
right? and
yeah,
uh, and we're pushing out there no matter what. You're in a unique situation. I mean, this is something we might be able to learn something from. You're an hour and a half from a major city.
yeah,
We're obviously in a country where there's a lot of repression, probably the most repression that we've had in the world in regard to this COVID thing. Yet
Oh,
you're out in a semi-rural environment, like you said. You're following your purpose. You're collaborating, which seems to be a big part of where we're headed.
yeah.
How are you affected or not affected? How do you engage or deal with, the COVID, all the things that come from it, the sub programs of mask and vaccines and of debate and arguments and the whole thing, discrimination and the whole thing. How do you, on a personal level, how do you deal with that?
Day by day,
Mm,
day by day. Oh, day by day. Where do I even start? Um, oh, I've got no idea where to even start. Day by day is how I deal with it. I struggle personally because I have been vaccinated
hmm
and needed to be to work. So I have a problem with people being forced to do things that go against
Yeah,
potentially where they were at. I made that decision before I was coerced into it by the government. But I still struggle because now we've got all of our boosters coming in and people are still getting sick. And it's like, where does this all sit? Um, and so for me, I do not care whether other people are vaccinated or not. That is their choice for whatever their reasons are. Um, we have a vaccine passport that we were meant to check for a long time in my business. I probably shouldn't announce this publicly, but I wasn't, because people who need healing regardless of whether they're vaccinated or not. And I put in place all of the measures that we're meant to put into place. It's a hard one. I think it's making us all. So we've got a lot of self-righteous people on both sides of the camp
of
here, and so
course.
there's
Yeah,
a lot of nastiness.
yeah,
For me, it was about stepping out of all of that hysteria both ways and finding the place where I can sit comfortably in my life, do my work, and focus on the larger purpose, which is we're
right.
all here sowing seeds. COVID
Right.
is necessary for us all to break down the systems even further, to understand the limitations of government, to lose our reverence for government if we ever had.
What is that? I don't think I ever had that. I'm
There
kidding.
are some people here that have
Yeah,
it.
no, I
Um,
get it. I get it. I
yeah,
totally get
and
it.
so it's about trying to move through all of that and hold true to who I am, and to a greater awareness that this isn't the end point.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just let's just say like a major terminal, like Sirius A. Like before you come
Yeah,
into the god. No, I think that's a great answer. First of all, I've got friends that have been jabbed. We've had people
yeah,
come on the show, talked about what process they went through. People that have
mm,
said, I was told, go get it. Don't be afraid.
yeah,
But I think the one thing that comes away from it all is those people that I'm referring to have all said this is somebody's personal choice.
yes,
And I think it's like anything else, even though there's a physicality to it, it's an energy. And are you going to take it with you like baggage, or are you going to do whatever or make whatever choice you make and then just keep on going? And
that's it.
kind of like throwing yourself into your work and your purpose, to the best of your ability, which is, like what you're doing. And then I think the
Yeah,
other thing that you bring up too is, we got to remember, I love to watch history videos and, I've always loved history. And, I was watching a video on, it was World War II, and it was as the England was getting bombed.
yeah,
And I was thinking to myself, geez, my dad was born in 36. This was 1945. I'm only familiar with my parents who grew up in that era and all the elements of influence that they had, such as the Great Depression. Even though it was after they were born, they were still feeling the ripples of it, in their families and so
yeah,
on. But I thought, wait a minute, no, my dad was in that era, but in a country where there was none of that going on. Can you
yeah,
imagine the impact of having to go into storm shelters in downtown London and listening to bombs with your children wrapped around your arms? So
yeah,
yeah, I think that the extreme nature of any position is divisive, especially when it comes from the light worker starseed community, as we like
yeah,
to put ourselves out there as. But yeah, I think there's, if nothing else, the two things I feel like that you're representing and that I think it's coming out slowly but surely, is that stay in your own lane, and I'm going to make my own decisions and be in control of my own power.
Yeah.
And that's for everybody. And, that seems to be, to me, the key points of this whole COVID thing. But yeah, I admire the fact that obviously, and your energy speaks for itself. You can talk about this and you're not charged. You're just,
No.
it is what it is. And I'm taking it day by day, really moment by moment. Right.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And so I've got people on the board of my institute who are not vaccinated, and we all work in harmony together. Just after we came out of our extreme lockdown in New South Wales last year, so towards the end of October, I ran a witches' dance where we all get together and do the Hexenbrut dance. I
I
don't know
was
if
going to
you've ever
say, when
seen
you
it.
told me that you were getting pressure from your old job, I thought that because they found out you were a witch. That's what I was actually going to say, but I didn't know you well enough to say it. So no, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
Go
you can say that. No, that's never impacted anything in my career as a teacher at all. That I was always very open about who I was, and I never encountered any. I'm heavily tattooed as well. I've never encountered any discrimination for those
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that I'm aware of. I
No,
may have had my bubble up protecting me from it, but I've never
you're cloaked. You
experienced
weren't
it.
even seen. What are you talking about? You were
What's that?
cloaked. You were cloaked.
That's exactly absolutely safe and protected from that. So the expression to be able to
Yeah.
be myself was always allowed.
Yeah.
So we ran that. I ran the witches' dance, and technically in New South Wales, again, I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, but technically in New South Wales, if someone wasn't vaccinated, they weren't allowed to leave their home still.
Yeah.
And I had people say, Tina, I really want to come. And I said, I'm not asking if you're vaccinated. If you want to come, come. And I set up a little messenger chat thread, and the most beautiful experience occurred in there. It left me in tears, where I had some friends coming who had a little baby with them, and another, their older daughter is immunocompromised, and they just said, look, we just need to know if there are going to be unvaccinated people there so that we can make the right preparations to come. So it wasn't that they weren't going to come. They were going to make the right preparations. And then what happened I said, yes, there will be people here that are unvaccinated, because I knew out of some of the people who were coming, they had disclosed to me. And then the most beautiful conversation happened in that group. And that was people who were unvaccinated came forward and said, I'm unvaccinated, but you tell me what you need me to do to make sure your children are safe, and I will do that.
Wow.
And it became just an insanely beautiful, compassionate, kind, aware conversation between adults. I'm going to cry now.
Wow.
And I just only the rest of the world could have these conversations coming from such deep vulnerability and honesty and compassion for one another. And that day went smoothly. No one got sick. There was no COVID here.
Yeah.
And it was just full of love. It was divine.
Yeah. Yeah, that speaks a lot to the intentions and hearts of the people coming together, even
Yeah.
though they haven't, at a human level, thoroughly verbalized things to each other.
Yeah.
It's just and then the respect, which is, the respect, the honor, the reverence, the love. I mean, and, the more that I see, what's on the mainstream media, which I look at just for actually
Yeah.
laughs and to see
Yeah.
how stupid it is and what they're really trying to say. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I find it something that that's helpful in the work that I do.
Yeah.
But the more that I see it, the more I am coming to the conclusion that we are not a small minority.
No.
We're not. The vast number of people on the earth all have the same inclination, just as those that came to your
Yeah.
event. Yeah.
I think because at the end of the day, we all want to feel like we're part of something that's beautiful. We don't
Mm,
want to. I think there are some people that might still be stuck in those patterns of not wanting to move forward and wanting to stay in a negative frame all of the time.
mm,
But I think more and more people are becoming conscious that we're always in balance. There's shadow and light in everything.
mhm.
And it's up to us to choose which way we perceive that. Each event
Yeah.
that comes, is it an opportunity or is it a shackle? And we get to
Right.
choose that.
Yeah. And some people, I mean, and granted, these are trailblazers. I don't think we can forget that those that came before us, such as
Mhm.
the generation of our parents or whatever, it's a whole different situation. I mean, if I'm 80 plus years old and I've been
Yeah.
through the experience that an 80-year-old would have been through, I would be far less, willing to move out of my comfort zone, even how uncomfortable it
Mm.
might be. Because if I'm getting a check every month that I'm living off of from the government, and et cetera, it's a whole different. But I really feel like this non-judgment that's starting to occur must have. It only makes sense that it's begun within ourselves. Like I think
Absolutely.
being someone that works a lot with trauma victims and having your own trauma, we know that even though again with human terms, that we may have been a victim that was perpetrated,
Yeah.
that we still carry guilt, we still carry shame, and so as we've thrown those off of us, then it starts to uh, we start to see the same thing in others. And I think maybe that's what
Yeah.
you're describing, such as this event where you had all these people come together, which is absolutely magical. By the way,
Yeah.
speaking of magic, evidently Merlin is present. I didn't know you were. Affiliated with him, but I should have known with you and Gail and
Perfect.
Morgan, and there's a picture of him back there. That might be where he's looking at us from. Um, has there been I know that, and a lot of people have said this too, not that it's true for everybody, but that the different voices of the universe have kind of like become more of a singular voice. We're kind of on our own. We are that, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But having said that, over this period of time, say the last few months or whatever, last couple of years, have you had an uptick in occurrences of what people might call paranormal, magic, alchemy, coincidence, synchronicity, serendipity, just things happening in your favor? Are you experiencing that?
Absolutely. But have been for the last 5, 6 years.
Mm,
And I think it comes down to, for me, it was a thing of starting to trust. So I have spirit communicate with me a lot.
mm,
Um, and things just happen. Like it's, I used to be a very fearful person, I think, as most of us are. And so, like, when Morgan reached out to me about this, I pretended to be really cool in my responses to her and just went, "Yep, no worries, that'd be great." And then I had to own to her that I was absolutely terrified of stepping out of the comfort zone. But
have you
absolutely
not done this before? You're a natural. Have you
no,
not been a really?
I've done
Wow.
one interview like this with someone before. I do my
Wow.
own videos, but,
Okay.
it's different when you're communicating with someone that you don't like,
Yeah.
that you've not actually ever met in the physical.
Right.
Um, and so it became, for me, it was a marking of being open to trust
Mm.
and just accepting what comes and going with the flow. And so as a result of sitting in that space of acceptance, I wasn't even anxious about this or nervous until 9:30 this morning, and we started at 10. And then it all hit me, but went through the strategies of
We
breathing
must
and
have
all the
gone through
rest.
the same thing. I thought it was 3 hours later, and at nine
Yeah.
thirty, I was still off planet. And I was like, oh my god, I
Well,
got to
you've
do
done well
this.
to come back.
I literally rolled into this chair at exactly 10 o'clock, and you
All
saw
right.
me in my shorts, so
I
that
do.
my long lost secret now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
But it's all
that's
trust.
it.
It's all flow.
What's that?
It's all trust and flow. And when we open
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
up to
Yeah.
embracing that
Yeah.
instead of sitting in fear, it just things happen and
Yeah. I
the
agree.
magic happens and things change and shift.
I think
It's that
that's
simple.
yeah, I totally see. I love this show because of the way things come together when you do exactly what you're saying, which is
Yeah,
what. I literally got up to even before I got the message from Morgan. I was like, I'm calling off all the shows the rest of the week till Monday. I'm
yeah,
done. Stick a fork in my ass. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. But it was just that momentary lapse, where you
yeah,
you go back into. But what I was going to say is, so I did an open mic last night, and I was in no condition to do it.
yeah,
Like, I haven't shown my ass in a long time. And I was on there. And the funny thing was the microphone, which I guess it's working okay today, right?
yeah,
But
it's perfect.
when
Well,
I was
hear me.
talking, it was just you couldn't understand what I was saying. So
Ah,
obviously the energy was mirroring everything. But what I'm getting at is like my, and what I picked up from others too, but the way I was kind of personifying, what was going on, or exemplifying what was going on, was this frustration. This, I'm getting tired of this. Like,
Yeah.
what's the deal here? How do we know what we're hearing? Do we question what we hear? Do we take it at face value if somebody tells us something? Are we just giving our belief system up for somebody else's? And I just keep seeing that there is no other way but then to do what you're doing, which
Yeah.
is accept the fact that you can't look beyond a day or two.
Yeah.
Just get up, take your lunch pill, go to do what you do every day, and put your best into it, and
Yeah.
try not to carry, try not to take on any energetic templates, and try not to carry any with you. You know what I mean? Does
That,
that make sense? Yeah,
yeah, because I think we overthink.
yeah,
Especially if we stop living in the programs that exist of you get up, you go to work, you come home, you cook dinner for your family, you go to bed, you start over again. If we move out of that, we tend to overthink
yeah,
whether we're doing the right thing, whether what we're doing is actually serving ourselves or other people. What is the purpose of it? Are we creating more drama in our lives just for the sake of creating that drama for ourselves?
yeah,
Why do we want to be different? Are we seeking attention? I think we do that naturally when we
yeah,
start walking a different path, and we do
yeah,
question what the purpose of it is. Like,
yeah.
what is the ultimate end point here for any
I
of
don't.
us?
I got off last night, and a lot of times when I get into that type of state,
Mm,
that's when I write. And I haven't been writing a
yeah,
lot, but I started writing a couple of weeks ago, and it was through that type of process. And I thought, how do you express something that contains it all?
yeah,
I think at one point in the song, it was like, um, it's like, I feel so fucking good, and I feel so depleted, and it's like, but both are here, right? Like what you're talking about, and it just feels like that. Slowly and inevitably, we're being pushed into just strictly ourselves. I mean, we might still have
yeah,
Merlin pop in or whatever the case is, but this is us. And then, to me, the real, like I guess like the elemental, uh, you know, geometry that's spinning at
yeah,
the bottom, in the middle of the Merkaba is
yeah,
action. Is
yeah,
action. Like I think that's where I really was yesterday, and probably why I got up and did the show, because I was like, you know what? I'd rather get up and show my ass. I'd rather get up and give it a shot than sit here on the
yeah,
couch and do nothing, because I'm
yeah,
tired of that. I'm tired of waiting. I think a line I put in the song last night was, waiting's wanting to be released.
yeah,
Okay, like, what are we waiting for? And so, like, if I look at you and others like you, they're picking up, like I said, they're gathering themselves in the morning. It is what it is today, and you're going to
mhm,
go out and you're going to pursue this, and you're still going to have those elements that you're talking about: the doubt, why
absolutely.
am I doing this, do I want attention, etc., 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 right?
And it's perfectly all right because we're humans. At the end of the day, we're humans. We're doing the best we can with what we know. When
Yeah,
we know better, we do better.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
there's nothing much else more we can do except trust where we feel we need to be. I think it's also important, though, to honour those down times where we do feel like we're sitting in a bit of the shade and
mm,
we're just thinking, oh, what is that? I think it's important to take stock. I did a stock take on my last 2 years yesterday. I just felt very called to do it and then to share it, just to see how much I have been going through, because it's been a massive 2 years. Moving house, both parents dying, animal
mm,
dying, changing work, closing a business, COVID, through all of that. Like, it's been massive. And I think we sometimes need to take stock of where we've been so that we can appreciate where we are and then understand that for me, it's about understanding that there is a greater purpose here. And it comes down to, for me, empowering sexual trauma victims and survivors and the people in my life, that we
yeah,
all live the best lives, that
yeah,
we see everything as an opportunity and to gain something, and that we're always in balance.
yeah. It's golden. Yeah, and I agree with you. I've spent some time reflecting. The last 10, 11 years, the last 2 years, the last
Yeah,
year. I mean, we have made massive leaps. There's evidence all over the path of our journeys, and I think because it's become common
yeah,
or more frequent, that we tend to kind of forget. But maybe that's the universe's way of letting us subtly get used to this
yeah.
magical energy that that we're all experiencing. Another thing that I'm
Absolutely.
finding that's really interesting, we had a very beloved brother, Franco Di Nicola. He transitioned in October. We both got COVID the same day. I found out about another friend of mine that actually got it the same time. Uh, these threads that are kind of coming together that have been on the other side of the veil or out of the visible light spectrum, let's just say, and they're starting to come together and weave together that
Yeah.
involve those who have, we call, transitioned, those who are no longer
Yeah.
incarnated in a physical body. And there seem to be, for me anyway, there seems to be some type of kind of a weaving together of those that are still walking the earth in the physical body and those that are not. Have you experienced anything like that?
I think I understand what you're saying, and it's that idea that what kept coming to me as you were speaking was that a lot of people are choosing to transition now so that they're able to help from beyond.
Yeah,
And
that'd
so
be
they
one.
then help show the way for those of us that are still in physical form. It's
Yeah.
like a symbiotic
Yes. Yeah.
development between,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like that. And then another way I think to explain it would be that it's no different than us. Like you'd say
Yep,
me, you, Gail Morgan,
yep,
different people collaborating, but we're all in a
yep,
body. And now what I'm noticing is that, especially with him and a couple of other situations,
yep,
I'm noticing that they seem to be just as involved and just as
yes,
apparent in the
yes.
collaboration. So I don't know. I just, these
No, I
things.
agree.
Yeah.
When my mum passed in at the end of October last year, it was obviously I'm still grieving and will
Mm,
miss my mum, but it was also very empowering because it was like the breaking of or the closing of my two soul contracts with my parents, which has led me into this massive explosion of growth
right.
because my earthly shackles were removed. However, my parents are still both with me in spirit form and still are guiding, but from that purer energy of not being shackled by their own human contracts. Does
Yeah.
that sort of
Yes.
resonate
Yes.
as well? That ties
Yeah,
in,
it's
yeah.
it's like the field of the living library. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
field of the living library is getting more expansive. It's more accessible and available to us. It just feels that's what I'm feeling, and I just thought I would mention
yeah,
it because I can kind of the fact that you've just gone through what you've gone through, and I feel for you as much as
yeah,
I can because that hasn't happened to
yeah,
me, but
yeah,
that's a lot, and I guess that's another thing that's happening is you know, a lot of, well, say, there's been enough people, credible people, let's just say, that have forecasted there'll be a pretty substantial exodus from the
yeah,
physical plane, to put it in human terms, and that in itself is going to help us. It's kind of like a COVID thing. It looks one way, but it ends
yeah,
up being another thing, where it's
yep,
going to kind of help us to acclimate and alter our perspective of what death is, because we know that's the biggest program. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think you're absolutely spot on there. I think, and also from then we're opening and expanding our consciousness to accept beings from beyond the human plane
Yeah.
altogether,
Yeah.
and even just spirit into the aliens, and accepting all of those different consciousnesses that we all start working together, and that's how we break down these old systems
Mm.
that no longer serve the masses.
Yeah.
They serve the powers, and that's probably about it.
Yeah. That's another place I'm at too, which is like for all of us, these things have been, kind of like simmering, 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 and
Yeah.
getting to a boiling point. And that is those things that we can do in what up to this point has been a non-physical dimension,
Yep.
to be able to do them here now. So
Yeah.
I look at something, for instance, like materializing in Australia,
Yep.
and in not getting caught up in how, but just
Yeah.
knowing that I can. Yeah, and I could take a whole bunch of different examples that I'm giving, but like I don't. There's a part of me that just knows that everything we're capable of, and it's no BS, and it's not just new age talk, that everything that we're capable of in what we call dream state, in dimension, in our meditative experiences, is available to us here. if we
Yes.
can, and this is me talking to me, if I can just get out of the how it
Yeah.
works and why it's this way and all that stuff, all the questions, and just, and just focus on, this is my intention. This is where I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving the vibration, shifting it. So we're
Hmm.
moving out of fear and out of thinking and into feeling and into heart
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
wholly,
Yeah.
and lifting our vibrations that way to know that anything that is possible anywhere is possible within us. I agree.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been going, funnily enough.
Really? Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
I've always understood as an individual goes, so goes a collective. So obviously whatever's happening to one person, it's either at a minimum available, whether they're
Yeah.
conscious or unconscious of it, to the masses. But, I just got to say, as the days go by, and I watched this thing. I was reading the headlines yesterday. I wish I could remember what they were, because I was literally laughing. I was like, "Oh my god, are they
Yeah.
serious?" Like, is this? I think there was one that said truck crashes, infected monkey on the loose, and this is a
There we
national
go.
newspaper. And I'm like, "What
Yeah.
the fuck are they talking about?" So it's like, it's so obvious, the element of distraction, because it can be any
Yeah.
subject, and if there's 50 to choose from, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hooked. You know what I mean? But as the time goes on, every day I say, I wake up and I'm like, I want to be here. No, I'm not comfortable all the time. Yes, I've got
Yeah.
questions. Yes, I have anxieties at times. Yes, I
Yeah.
have purpose, and other times I don't feel, like after the show last night, I when I went to bed, I slept 13 straight hours,
Oh,
and I and,
wow.
and I woke up going, oh my god, it's 3 o'clock. Like, what the hell? I mean, this is crazy. But I also understood my body was going, this was very important. You needed to do this.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, I'm blown away, and I know I'm probably biased, but I'm blown away by what we're doing here. Like,
Yeah.
if I have a choice, I want to stay, because I want to see what the hell happens. And
Yeah.
because I have a feeling that what we're doing is beyond extraordinary, even from the
Yeah.
eyes of our universal family,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it's that growth in collective consciousness that you were talking about, that so many people are starting to feel they have permission to step out of the boundaries that have always been imposed
Yeah.
and to own more of who they are.
Yeah.
And more people are stepping up to do their own healing work and to really move beyond where they've been. And I think that's happening at a really, really fast rate, at a rate that's unprecedented. And I think the internet, for all of the evil in the internet, it makes it so it's more possible for like minds to find each other and to create that collective consciousness and to really shift those energies.
Yeah. That's a great example. That's a great
Yeah.
example. Every time I see somebody complaining about Facebook, I'm like, no judgment. But
Mhm.
I'm like, there's another side to it. It's just like
Yeah,
COVID. There's another side to it. I
there
mean,
is.
it's the glass half empty, half full thing.
Yeah.
And I've always, and even in the Soul Speak I wrote last night, I put at the end, maybe a human is all we'll ever be.
Yeah.
And I put after that, you can't prove it to me and I can't prove it to you. Right. So now there's a part of me inside my soul, that I know, but I also know that I don't know.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then I'm going to go half full, and I'm going to try to fill the glass up and let the cup
Yeah.
runneth over.
Yeah.
And I've always said to myself, how do I know? I mean, how
Yeah.
do I not know that what actually happens is what I think happens? Right? Like, if I think I'm
Yeah.
going to be worm dirt, I'm going to be worm dirt, and I'm going to feed, a tree that's going to grow and be 1,000 years old. Or am I going to continue on this journey into the next great adventure? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just such a trip on the mind, a trick on the mind.
Yeah.
But being present is way beyond me being present with you, and
Yeah.
even being present with myself. It's being present with the entire thing.
It
Like
is.
people
In
say,
all of the
everything's
timelines
talking to you.
that
Go
exist.
ahead.
In all of the timelines that exist, not just this timeline, not just this place.
Mm,
It's
yes.
being wholly grounded and present
Yeah.
and accepting that the consciousness is much broader and wider than that.
Yeah. And then the whole thing, people talked about this for a long time. Morgan told me about this for a long time, which was everything's talking to you all the time.
Yep.
And so, like, as you go, as we experience life, more and more in depth, and you start to have greater meanings to everything, right? And so I
Yep.
started going, okay, what around me am I resisting? What is it
Yeah.
that's pissing me off? What is it that's making me uncomfortable? And
Yep.
that's the whole. That seems to be more of like, say, more of a find for me than attachment. Attachment isn't a,
Yeah.
everyone's different, but I'm just saying it's more of the resistance. I'm resistant to that. I'm resistant to what was said about me. I'm resistant to what somebody
Yes.
presented to me. I'm resistant to the government. So it's that, to me,
Yeah.
that's where the goal is, because to me, we got to take it all with us.
Yes.
I mean, it's all part of us, right? And I
It
know
is.
that sounds new age-ish, but oneness is
They're all
oneness.
words at the end of the day, but it's all words, the new age, and
Mm,
it's all words. And words are so restrictive because we've created them.
mm,
And
sure.
I'm finding increasingly that there are lots of moments in my life, good and bad, where I have no words. And I'm a writer as well. So and obviously I like speaking, but to not have words to act, like, it's a feeling more than a word. And I've had conversations with people who say the words are limiting me, I can't describe what I want to say. And I
Yeah,
go, I'm hearing you, I understand that.
yeah,
And I think that's also where we're shifting in consciousness. We've realized the restrictions of the things that we've always held to that
right.
connect us, like our ability to communicate, are really quite superficial still.
Exactly.
Important and valid,
Yes.
but they're restrictive too.
Well, I think in the transition, like everything else,
Hmm.
what was my highest truth yesterday isn't there today.
No,
It's like there's a
absolutely.
higher ceiling now, right? And so I think the words are, yeah, there seems to be, a real important relationship between the heart, the throat, the
Yeah,
sexual energy in the throat,
yeah,
in this time and place, right? Like, there's something about stepping up, like you were talking about, like,
yeah,
being nervous, you step up, you do it, and it's a power up, and not
yeah,
just for you, but for anyone that observes it, because I'm with
yeah,
you, like you were talking about at the top of the show. This is the real virus. The real virus is this. Now,
yeah,
as another example, I have people, we put up these shows, and lots of them, and
yeah,
all it says is Soul Speaks 5D, Tina Meyer. And I'll have people write me every week and say, can't you go in there and tell us what was talked about so we can, go through it and query what subjects we want? And I'm like, man, number one, I don't have the time. And number two, if you ask me, like, in an hour after we're off, if you ask me what we talked about, I will have
have no,
very little recall, but I will have total recall of the energetic experience. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I think
me
that's where
too.
we're headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's ultimately a bit more valid. So, like, I
Absolutely.
post
Yeah.
a lot of videos on my business page and my personal page. Just Tina's ramblings is basically what they are, whatever I feel like saying that comes out of my mouth in the moment. And I never remember. So when people comment and they refer to specific things in there, I go, did I say that? And I have to go back and watch it to be able to reply. And I just go, this is insane. Because
Yeah.
it's just being, I don't need to remember it. Once it's
Yeah.
shared, it's out, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that even applies to any download that any of us receive, even if we don't verbalize it or create some kind of artistic expression or whatever the
Yeah,
case is. The fact that energetically we've brought it, like, anchored it within ourselves to the earth. I mean, it's available, and I think a lot of the stuff that's happening too is we're not, like, downloading something that's, like, that's just, we got to go do it, or,
yeah,
this is my marching orders. It's more of like aligning with what's happening, like what
yeah,
we're experiencing of the symptoms and the characteristics at that point in the transition,
yeah,
or whatever phase we're in. And I think that's starting to, and that in itself, I think, once, as we're starting to accept that this is inevitable, that it's bigger than all of us, that what happens is it becomes more allowable. It becomes more of our reality, because we're not uptight and we're not standing in the
yeah,
way, and we're getting over ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're owning ourselves, so we can completely stuff up and accept that that's okay. that we're not evil people that we need to now hide away and shackle ourselves. We're able to go, well, actually, I stuffed up and I own that. Like I was having a conversation equals argument with somebody online yesterday. We have an Australian of the Year every year, and they are selected by a committee and announced the night before Australia Day. So today is Australia Day /
So who was the
invasion.
winner? Dan Andrews?
No, he's our Victorian dictator. So he's in charge of one of the
I'm
states.
just messing with you. Yeah.
I'm being serious.
I know, no, I'm kidding with
But
you.
our Australian of the Year last year for 2021 was Grace Tame, who's a sexual abuse survivor. And she became quite activist and militant during the year. And it resulted in a march in Canberra and across all of Australia last year in March, because our federal parliament, had incidences of women being sexually assaulted on their premises, staff who worked there, and the government wasn't doing anything about it. So it became this massive rise in consciousness of, we need to empower the voices of survivors of sexual trauma and victims of sexual trauma. And yesterday at Parliament House, she had to they have a reception thing, and she and her fiance walked up to our Prime Minister, who has been very ignorant and very naive about all of this and just would prefer to wash his hands off it, I think, because it's made it hard for him. And she refused to smile. She shook his hand. She acknowledged his existence, but she refused to smile. And so there are photos of her scowling, looking very unimpressed with him. She was very polite to his wife, and she's been attacked on social media. And I stepped into an argument with someone. I've forgotten what the point of this was. Bloody hell.
Keep going.
But, well, I stepped into a discussion where someone was saying she needed to be more polite, and she's actually taken on left leanings, and she's lost the purpose of a message, and just trying to belittle her and make her small. She's only 27 years old. Was 26
really?
26 when she received the Australian of the Year award.
Wow.
And I said to him, I think it's important for us all to realise that we're all human, and she's a survivor of sexual trauma that occurred in her life only 11 years ago from a teacher at school where she was repeatedly raped in his office. And so she has had a massive, fast healing journey. And he made some comment that it was along the lines of, if someone's going to be in the spotlight, they need to be on top of their game. And I said, no, they don't. No, they don't. They need to be human. They need to present authentically, because that's how we change. When we're authentic in our mess or wherever we are, we give permission for other people to do the same.
Yeah.
And that's how we heal, because we don't bring shame in. That was not the point I was going to make, but I can't remember.
No, I think it was related to it. But that, that just goes to show you the influence of the narratives, because this plausible denial, be it sexual trauma in any political institution, including America and all over the world, and religious institutions. I mean, we don't have any women heading up religious organizations, not even the Buddhists. Nothing against the Dalai Lama, but give me a fucking break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all right there. And I think this has a lot to do with what you were talking about earlier. Maybe this is what you were talking about, but it had to do with the words, the explanations. I mean, if you really think about the conversations that we're having as time goes on, there are fewer words needed. In many cases, I'm finding nothing needs to be said.
Yeah.
Because the more we talk, the more bullshit that's potentially there. Because just like that old saying about, how do you know when somebody's lying? Because they go into this long, detailed explanation. Now, that's not judgment against myself or anybody else. It's just a pattern or a behavioral pattern or program. But I mean, really, let's face it. I mean, come on, you got a 20-whatever-year-old woman. I mean, there's stories out there all the time. We could take so many different examples. Yet we're hearing from the powerless powers that be that, there's a plausible denial that, come on, this is enough is enough. And I think this is where things kind of landed on our open mic yesterday, energetically and as a microcosm of what's happening everywhere, which is people are saying, you know what, enough is enough. If it means that I'm going to lose my physical life, so be it. I will go
Yeah.
to the next planet or the next dimension and carry
Yeah.
on because this is bullshit. Let's get on with this thing. And I don't see anything wrong with that. This whole thing about, well, be patient and, well, wait a minute. Why are we here? Are we here just to be aware of ourselves? Are we here to
Yeah.
create something? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And I think we both think we're here to create something.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
nothing raises hell like the light, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even just opposing voices. And that works. It shares a truer spirit about the importance of communication and the value of it, I think,
You
when we
do,
put up those opposing thoughts and ideas and
there was a lag. Oh, I got you.
oh, so
I
okay,
got
good.
you. So you do, I just got to play with you a little bit. So you do,
That's all.
and because I started doing these videos in 2014. Most
Yeah,
of them were like your videos where I just pick up the phone and go,
yeah,
okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about, but whatever.
yeah,
And I think the reason that those things work even today, when I see people, I love to see people get on video, especially if they've never been on,
yeah,
because I think it's nothing but the heart. I've always said, you could be teaching your favorite Mexican recipe, but it's what comes through that appeals
yeah.
to people. It's not the content. But
No,
just in relation to what your videos are, you said what did you call them? Tina what?
Tina's ramblings.
Tina's rambling.
Tina's
So I'm going to just
ramblings
throw, just to have
about.
a little fun. I'm going to throw 3 or 4 or 5 things at you real quick, and just give me a quick answer. What your thoughts are? If
Okay.
we see spaceships landing, are they the government's? Are they real? What do you think?
No, they're our family.
They're our family. Okay.
They're our
So
family. Hopefully coming to collect us at times.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, neither do
The
I.
last
Unfortunately, I'm still
astronaut's name
praying
was
it will.
Jesus, I think, and they put him up on a cross. No, I'm kidding.
True.
So another way to put it: do you think that do you think that if we see ships landing, ships in the sky, and so on, a narrative built around it? Would you be at this point in the game? Would you be trusting of it, or would you think that maybe this is the government's trying to persuade us or dissuade us one direction or another?
Interestingly, for me, the government wouldn't even factor into that. I just
I
go, oh,
got you.
look, there's spaceships.
I got you. Okay. And two, do you think that we will be roaming the earth freely as souls should be in the physical form anytime soon or at all?
At all, yes. Anytime soon, not sure.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
sure. But that's funny that you asked that because that's been on my mind lately is where does this consciousness end up? People are worried about our planet. I'm not so worried about our planet. It will outlive all of us.
Right.
But will we stay populating it in a different form? Potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully more respectfully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some kind of unexplainable or incomprehensible to the human, in the way this thing's all constructed. I mean, there is a
Yeah.
purpose behind it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I guess like COVID is a small example
Mm.
of it, a micro example of it. You look at it one way, and if you look at it strictly
Yeah.
to the human, then it's just like doomsday. But if you look at
Yeah.
it from, and maybe that's where we're headed. You mentioned consciousness.
Yeah.
Maybe walking the talk and cutting the BS is actually moment by moment, like you described your life now.
Yeah.
It's moment by moment, looking through the lenses of what we might call the higher perspective or the soul's eyes, and instead of going back and falling back into what we've been, having the maturity to actually look at everything from that higher perspective, because to me that would energetically alter and expand the consciousness. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
And shift the volatility of COVID
Yeah,
and completely, I think, dismantle its hold on us from fear and we start to see it as an opportunity of growth and as a blessing to
yeah,
us because it's allowed us to expand, to see other people, to come back together, to
yeah.
reunite and reconnect after such division.
Yeah, and I think too, if you look at the history of, let's say, television programming from, like,
Mhm.
say, everything post World War II, let's just say,
Yep.
GMOs, fluoride, chemtrails, whatever we don't know about. I mean, weather control. I mean, DARPA, HARP, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Something's happened to us from a bioelectromagnetic
Mm.
kind of way, and that is that we are becoming more and more impervious to these
Yep.
physical intrusions and such. And I just think that, regardless of what's going on, it reminds me of talking to my two kids, my youngest kids, which were part of the first few years of my awakening, because I had them with me. They were teenagers, two girls, so it was balls out. And but I remember telling them one day, "Hey, look, you're 14 years old. You want to be an adult. I'm tired of fighting you. The tsunamis are just too much. I'm just going to give it up. And but I want you to know something. I'll treat you like an adult, but don't revert to being a kid. And I'm your daddy just when it's convenient." And I look at it that way, like to me, and I'm maybe a little hard on myself or whatever the case is, but because to me it's cut and dry. It's like, okay, I can go and play in this water or in this shallow water over here,
Yep.
but it's not serving me. It's not serving anyone else. And the only thing that I can really feel into, just like in your life story, is try something different, try something
Mm.
new, get off the pity pot, get off the, make a move.
Yeah.
Because no matter
Disrupt
what
the
happens,
narrative.
what's that?
Disrupt the narrative.
Yes, disrupt the narrative. Yeah, yeah. Which I guess a lot of people are doing, because you see people getting caravans, you see people leaving
Yeah.
houses, jobs, just like you did, and I guess there's a groundswell occurring at the individual level that's just kicking ass and taking names, really.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think everything that comes, so prior to COVID coming into Australia, we had a massive drought for a long period of time. And so everything was brown and dams had dried up, the waterways were drying up. We had a real water crisis looming. And then the rain came. And after the rains and the drought, we then had massive bushfires across most of the country, or most of the country is probably an exaggeration, but definitely across most of New South Wales, and
Yeah,
then parts of Victoria and Queensland and Western Australia, I think, as well. Gail will be able to say if I'm wrong there.
that's right. I
And so
forgot about
then,
that.
yeah, and then we went into massive rains and some flooding in my local area.
Mm.
So we had all of these natural elements in a relatively short period of time, just be in massive extreme. And I don't think we learned what we were meant to learn from any of that.
Mm.
And I think that's why COVID, in a sense, became, reticent to say it, but it sort of became that next step in us learning what we need to learn
Mm.
about the essence of community, which is people should always be working together and respecting each other's differences, because it all serves. If everyone were the same, we would hate that. Like,
Oh,
we'd
I
hate it.
yeah, I got you. You're right. It's
Mm.
like we're getting. It's like we're getting. It's like you and your own story. You had the push, uh,
Yep.
and so it's just why would it be any different for the collective body versus the individual?
It wouldn't.
Like
That
how many
micro,
of us
macro.
here? Yeah, like how many of us here got hit on the head by the universal 2x4 because we didn't
Yeah.
we didn't take
Listen to the
notice, or we didn't
whispers.
act. Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whispers become nudges and then they become
And
punches, right?
that's
I
exactly
gotta
right.
I gotta throw this in real quick. Just do everything as you feel like you need to. But so Heather Nilsson, our sister, she's talking about because so much of this stuff is not being put on the mainstream media. But she says she knows this isn't the subject, but I had to say that I had an amazing afternoon watching all the truckers come in from the west through Winnipeg. So much support for these beautiful truckers as they head towards
Beautiful.
Ottawa. They are all against the mandates at Trudeau and the Libre, blah blah blah. But yeah, so and
Almost got
this goes back to what
goosebumps.
we were talking about earlier. Is that I think that I used to say, oh well, we're a very small, powerful minority, and that may be true. I
Yeah.
don't know, but I just have a feeling that there's a whole bunch more at this party than we think,
Yeah.
and
I think
and
so
uh,
too.
and that's kind of like a grassroots um,
Yep.
word of mouth type of uprising.
Yep.
Candace, my friend Candace, says the Canadians have raised $4.5 million to support the truckers.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow, far out.
That's brilliant.
Well, you are a breath of fresh air.
Oh,
Thank you for
thanks.
being so open.
That's
You
all
know, I think this is great. We should get together sometime again in 2022 if
right.
you're open to it and get a.
Absolutely. I've absolutely enjoyed this.
Me too. And as you know, as we get into this, because we're kind of like sensitive to whatever
Yeah.
is being presented at the time. But I could definitely see where on this platform specifically as as we expand, I mean, as a world, where the
Yeah.
topic of sexual trauma,
Yeah.
transformation from sexual trauma, it becomes more specific, because I really feel like that the reason, I mean, if anything's been kind of hushed, it's been that for
Yes.
everyone, for everybody,
Yes.
and
Yes.
one way or the other, whether your traumas through a porn addiction, whether your traumas through
Yeah.
being assaulted as I mean, I really feel like it's not talked about. So the more it's talked about, and so to see the nuts and bolts of that, people like yourself doing that type of work, I think would be very educational and very expansive and full of code.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
So
up for it.
yeah. So I'm so happy that your affiliation with Gail didn't diminish your. And I'm just messing with you. I love Gail. Gail's like more than a sister to me, and
Oh, she's a beautiful, beautiful
yeah,
soul.
she's just absolutely amazing. She really
Yeah.
is. Okay, everybody. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the day. Nothing else is scheduled, but you never know. I love you. I love you, Tina. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Todd.
Gail. And I'll talk to you guys later when I see you. Take care. Thank you, Tina, very much. See you.